It started as a simple camping trip, just a group of friends looking for a weekend escape into the quiet, undisturbed beauty of nature. The 5 of us, Ryan, Jake, Emily, Sarah, and E had been planning this for weeks, eager to get away from the noise of the city and enjoy the fresh mountain air. We had chosen a remote campsite deep in the forest, far from the usual hiking trails, hoping for some real adventure. But we never expected the kind of adventure we got. The drive up to the campsite was long and winding, the roads barely maintained, but the view was breathtaking. Towering pines lined the road, their dark green tips brushing against the cloudy sky. The air was crisp, carrying the distant scent of damp earth and pine needles. As we pulled into the designated campsite, the sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows through the dense forest. After setting up our tents and getting a fire started, we sat around, laughing and sharing stories. The fire crackled, sending flickering light into the darkness beyond. Everything felt perfect, the kind of night you remember for years. That was until we heard the first noise. It was subtle at first, almost too faint to notice over the crackling of the fire. A rustling sound, deep in the woods, like something moving between the trees. We paused, exchanging glances, but quickly brushed it off. Probably just a deer. "It's a forest, guys," Ryan said, chuckling. "There are animals here. Shocking, I know." We laughed, letting the tension melt away. But as the night stretched on, the noises continued, branches snapping, leaves crunching, the unmistakable sound of footsteps. "Could be a bear?" Jake suggested, though he didn't sound entirely convinced. "A bear would stay away from the fire," Emily pointed out, her voice quieter now. A strange unease settled over us. We were miles away from civilization, and the idea of someone lurking just beyond the reach of our firelight sent chills through me. But still we tried to ignore it, pretending the sounds were nothing more than the forest going about its nightly routine. Then came the whispering. At first, I thought I was imagining it. A faint, almost unintelligible murmur just beyond the tree line. I glanced at Sarah, who was sitting beside me, and her wide eyes told me she had heard it too. The conversation around the fire died as we all strained to listen. "Did you hear that?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Nobody answered. The forest had gone completely still. No wind, no rustling leaves, just silence. And then the whispering started again. It was soft, hushed, as if multiple voices were speaking at once, but none of us could make out what was being said. It sent a bolt of pure fear through me. I grabbed my flashlight and shined it toward the trees, but there was nothing, just darkness. "Maybe we should leave," Sarah suggested hesitantly. "And go where?" Ryan argued. "It's past midnight, and we're hours from the nearest town." No one wanted to admit it, but we all knew we had no choice but to stay until morning. So, we huddled closer to the fire, trying to shake off the unease. Eventually, exhaustion won out, and one by one, we crawled into our tents. I don't know what time it was when I woke up, but the fire had burned down to embers, casting only the faintest glow. The air was freezing, and an unnatural stillness hung over the campsite. Then I heard it just outside my tent. Breathing. It was slow, deliberate, like someone was crouched just beyond the thin fabric, waiting. I held my breath, heart hammering in my chest. I wanted to call out, but fear kept my lips sealed. Then, something pressed against the side of my tent. Not an animal, a hand. I could see the shape of fingers, pressing slowly, almost testing the fabric. My stomach lurched. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing myself to stay silent, to stay still. The pressure lingered for what felt like an eternity before it finally disappeared. I don't know how long I lay there, paralyzed by fear, before exhaustion finally pulled me into a restless sleep. When morning came, I stumbled out of the tent, heart still racing from the night before. My friends looked just as shaken. "I heard something last night," Emily admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I was dreaming, but—" She trailed off, eyes darting to the edge of the trees. We didn't need to say anything more. We packed up in record time, stuffing our gear into our bags and dousing the fire before practically running to the car. None of us spoke until we were miles away from the forest. "There was someone out there," Sarah finally said, breaking the silence. None of us argued. To this day, I don't know who or what was in those woods with us, but every so often, I wake up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, convinced I hear the sound of slow, deliberate breathing just outside my window.